The Seiko SKX is one of the most sought after watches of all time. The problem is that it's been discontinued, making it nearly impossible to track one down, and if you do, you're going to end up paying an exorbitant price for it. I've seen them selling for $600 to $800. So in this video, we're going to find out if this little $200 Tandorio can fill the gap that the Seiko SKX has left in this watch market. This watch has amazing specifications on paper that completely blow the SKX out of the water. It has a ceramic bezel, a sapphire crystal, a titanium case, a hackable and hand-winding NH35, all for $200. However, these specifications don't tell the whole story about this watch. There are some definite caveats that you need to bear in mind. It's not all sunshines and a rainbow. I just want to mention, full disclosure, that this Tandorio was sent to me by Tandorio. I reached out to them because I was quite intrigued with this watch, and they graciously sent it over, and I don't have to send this back, but there's no monetary exchange going on, so my opinions are completely my own. They have no input on this video whatsoever. So in terms of the actual dial and handset design, it pulls inspiration from the Seiko SKX 009. One indicator of that is the dual colored second hand and the very, very bold luminous markers. And in terms of the wearing experience and proportions, it pulls inspiration from the abbreviated SKX 013's case dimensions with a 12.8mm thickness, a 37mm dial diameter, a 45mm lug to lug, and a strapaholic 20mm lug width. My microphone tended to hit my necklace and it caused some spikes in the audio. It doesn't happen too often in this video, so I'm really sorry, but I hope it doesn't detract from the actual content of this video. It's actually quite eye-catching. I opted for this beautiful orange sun ray dial, and this dial is a lot more interesting, I find, than the kind of flat and boring SKX matte dial. This dial reflects any light source it can get its hands on. And also, these luminous markers have a tinge of green. So especially out in broad daylight, it reminds me of like a pumpkin. It does look quite chunky because of the weird proportions. It's really thick, but really, really small in terms of diameters and lug width. But personally, I don't find that to be a con in terms of design because it's so light that you really don't feel it. This titanium case is brushed titanium. There is no polishing, and it is very, very, very tooly. The only thing that reflects light is the sun ray dial. If you're enjoying this video, I would definitely recommend hitting that subscribe button, hitting the like button, and commenting down below your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, if there's any suggestions that you have, if you like this watch, what watch you're wearing, just start a conversation. I'm very diligent and I will try to respond to each and every one of your comments. Speaking of which, I also have my Namoki NRX on, so definitely stay tuned because that review is coming up very soon. The markers on the dial are very, very bold, and they have these bold black outlines that make it look quite toyish. And I think because of how light it is, because there's no polishing, it does kind of skew my perception of the value of this watch because my brain is a little bit primal and it thinks heavy, shiny equals good quality. And that's not how someone would rationally think about it, but that's how I perceive it. It has a black waffle strap, and it just adds another facet to this watch. It's super malleable, very, very comfy out of the box. However, the clasp is polished stainless steel. It's a little bit dissonant with the rest of the watch design. There is no way to tell the exact time, and that is a major downfall in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because this bezel has 4 markers before the next 5-minute indicator, which means that you can't tell the exact time down to the minute. That is something that I wish it had. And the way that the Seiko SKX remedies this is they have inner indices so that you can tell the exact time. And one thing that is also a little bit quirky about this watch is that the sapphire crystal kind of sharply curves down. So it results in this sort of reflection of the dial indices. So it seems like you're looking at the dial indices with a sort of double vision, and it looks a little bit strange in my opinion. Also, another thing that is no fault of the watch itself, more of a gripe I have with Seiko's design language, and it's that the Lollipop second hand has the circular marker on the back half of the second hand, which I wish would be on the tip of the second hand so that in the dark you could actually view the exact second. It's a type of watch that you look at and it makes you want to go outside and makes you want to do something active, mow the lawn, drive the boat, get up on a stand-up board, or just go outside. So if that's something that you're looking for, this is definitely something you should keep in mind. And I think I almost forgot to mention, but this comes in a few other different dial colors. It comes in black, green, blue, so you don't have to go for this bold orange. Also, it comes with an aluminum bezel insert if you're not into ceramic. I don't really see any problems with the ceramic bezel outside of the fact that it sounds a little bit twangy, a little bit hollow. I wish it sounded a little bit more substantial. I don't really know how else to describe it. It just doesn't sound premium. The aperture of the date window lacks the day because this is a Seiko NH35, not an NH36. So that's something you should keep in mind as well. Because this is a Thule watch, you should most definitely keep the lume in mind. And that's something that is an outstanding feature of this watch compared to other inexpensive AliExpress-esque brands. And it's that when you go out in the sun, it is glowing, and you come inside and you can definitely tell that whatever lume they put on this is super strong. And it doesn't last that long, but it is very, very vibrant. This homage watch is not ashamed of copying the Seiko SKX one for one. I think that since the Seiko SKX has been discontinued, it is morally justifiable for other companies to recreate what is not available anymore. This is not ISO certified, and that's one of the things that made the SKX such a beloved watch. It was a dive watch, and it was rated for 100 meters, and everyone knew that they could take their SKX to the rated water resistance, whereas this Tandorio has an iffy 200-meter water resistance. So that's something you should definitely bear in mind, since this is a dive style watch. However, a lot of people love the SKX because it's a great watch to mod. And I would view this watch as sort of a pre-modded Seiko SKX. You're getting a ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal, titanium case, all the things that you would modify, but for much cheaper than the resale value of a Seiko SKX without the mods. And how does this connect to the water resistance, you may be asking? Well, if you're changing out all these parts on a Seiko, you're not only paying for the exorbitant SKX, you're also paying for the modifications, and on top of that, you have to test the water resistance because you just switched out all the parts. So instead of going through all the hassle, what I would recommend is purchasing one of these Tandorios, bringing it to an official watchmaker, and then getting the water resistance improved, and now you have a pre-modded Seiko for a lot cheaper. If you want to see some pictures of watches, answer some polls about watches, I definitely recommend checking out my Instagram and my Watch Crunch account. If you're interested in a value-packed watch that has a Swiss-inspired movement, a bronze case, a sapphire crystal, all for $200, I definitely recommend checking out this other review about this other Tandorio. I think that this watch is great for someone who wants to modify a Seiko SKX but doesn't want to spend the $600 plus that it takes to modify their watch. And it's also great for small wrists because of the abbreviated wearing dimensions. There are, of course, gripes that I mentioned before in terms of the design, but I do think that the water resistance downfall can be easily remedied. I do think that this watch offers great value for money, and it just has a whole lot going for it. I hope this watch channel patina is like your favorite watch. I'll see you on another episode on Time Ticker. Bye-bye.